Hey, what's up guys? So I've got some more news on the rumored Batman game that WB Montreal is working on. So according to multiple sources, a Reddit user who claims to have been working for WB Montreal is leaving the company, and he has leaked some information that could possibly be true for the upcoming Batman game. So take all this information with a grain of salt. I have no idea if it's actually true or not. But according to this Reddit user, a new Batman game will be titled Batman ARKHAM Insurgency, and it will take place 3 years after Arkham Origins. WB Montreal started working on this game back in 2014 and it uses the same engine that Arkham Knight uses. The game will feature a much darker Batsuit, which will be more fitted and less bulky, unlike the one from Arkham Origins. And the suit is kind of going to be like a ninja slash Black Ops style type of outfit. Next we will play as Batman and Robin, the Dick Grayson Robin. And Dick Grayson has been Robin for about 2 years at this point. As for the map, it's set in an unexplored coastal area of Gotham, which is about the same size as the 3 islands in Arkham Knight. The map has been expanded substantially by adding interiors to buildings, which we can now explore. Along with that, we'll also be able to fast travel to the Batcave and Wayne Manor. As for the plot, there's been a breakout at Blackgate and Arkham Asylum and several terrorist attacks on the city, which result in the GCPD blocking off a segment of Gotham where they have lost control. And that's the main playable area of the game. Now this area is not only populated by criminals and thugs and all that, but it's also populated by some civilians who need to be rescued. Next is the Batmobile. There's no battle mode anymore, but instead they've upgraded it for chase sequences, and along with that they've kept most of the basic weaponry that they had on it. So like the missile launcher, the EMP, and the power winch, those are all still present. Next, the dual play is also present, but they've taken out the dual takedown mechanic, and instead they're adding a new variety of special attacks and combos. Combat has also been expanded to better accommodate one-on-one fights. So we'll still have our basic attacks and counters, but the whole system has just been completely overhauled. Now as for villains, we have a pretty big list of villains here. So we have Owlman and Court of Owls. They'll be the main villains. Then we have other villains that include Maxi Zeus, Dollmaker, Killer Moth, Anarchy, Two-Face, Blockbuster, Ventriloquist, Cornelius Strikes, or Strix, I don't know how you say that, Tweedledee and Tweedledum, Dusan Al Ghul, Mad Monk, Dala, Riddler, and Joker. So they also said that Joker isn't the main villain of the story, and he's kind of just like a wild card that's there, and he does pretty much whatever he wants. But he said that Joker will occasionally help Batman and Robin in certain situations. Along for allies, Alfred and Lucius Fox are also present, along with Barbara Gordon. And they've also said that boss battles will be back once again. And the estimated release date is November 2017, but they said it could get pushed back for further development. And that's all the information that we have. Now, I know that's a lot of information, but again, take it with a grain of salt. What I'm questioning most right now is that a couple of months ago I did a video on the same topic, but with a completely different concept that talked about how the game was still by WB Montreal, but they were focusing on Damian Wayne as a new Batman, and the whole premise was set in the future, 10 years after Arkham Knight. And they were a totally different set of villains for the most part. So what I'm thinking, apart from that one of these rumors being fake, is that one of these could have been like a previous concept that they later scrapped because, like, yeah, this isn't gonna work. Maybe they were working on it for like a year and they're like, yeah, this isn't working. Let's go with a different concept. So that is the other alternative I see to why these two concepts are showing up, and which one of these could be the final piece. I could be completely wrong though, both of these could turn out to be false, and it could be a completely different concept. But for this concept specifically, I think for the most part it works really well. The only thing that really bothers me is that it's not a future setting and that the Batman isn't Damian Wayne. I guess that bothers me because when I first heard about that concept, it really intrigued me and I really wanted that version to be true. And then this concept comes along and it completely just not really cancels out the previous theory, but it just makes us question if that's even like a thing anymore. As for like the actual map information, like the size and all that, I think that makes sense to use the Arkham Knight's engine, especially since Arkham Knight was a previous game, and that's kind of how these game development cycles go. Same. Just gonna use Call of Duty for an example here. they kind of use the same type of engine. They with like Treyarch and then Activision and then Sledgehammer Games. So it's kind of like a repeating cycle. So it makes sense that they use the same engine Arkham Knight did. I think as for the size of the map, it seems sufficient. I'm not worried about that. The only thing I'm actually worried about is how much they're gonna like populate within this area. Like not just like criminals and like bad guys to beat up, but I'm talking about like side missions and side quests along with the main story. So, but I think the idea of actually having actual civilians in the game is great because it just brings more life like element to the game. Because beating the shit out of criminals is fun, but it only goes so far. It only gives us so much to do. So I think saving people that was definitely needed in the previous games, and I'm glad that they're actually introducing this. As for the Batmobile, I'm really glad that it's not a co-op battle mode anymore. Don't get me wrong, it was fun in Arkham Knight for just a little bit, but when they start to shove it down your throat, that's when it's just people didn't like it. So I'm glad that they're dropping it back down to the general chase sequences and then the basic upgrades for it and all that. As for dual play, I'm glad that the feature is back, but I'm curious as to what they mean by no more dual takedown and a new special type of attack system. Not really sure what that means, but honestly, I think if they kept one feature from the previous game, I think it would have to be the dual combat takedown specifically, because it seems like a really major feature. A takedown in general is just a really important combat feature, and they're just taking that out and going to replace it with something else. So I'm really curious as to what that's going to be and if that's even going to work at all. Now, I think the most important thing off of this whole list is the set of villains and how they're going to impact the story. So I think this is an incredible lineup. It's just as good as a lineup that was in the Damian Wayne concept. You can go watch my previous video and see what villains I noted in that one. But the only concerns I have with the villains for this concept is that the return of the Joker and the Riddler. We've seen him in every Arkham game, and I think it's time to put them to rest, especially Riddler. The puzzles for him are like, some of them are okay, some of them are just really fucking annoying, and it gets boring after a while, honestly. So I really think they really should not use Riddler anymore and replace him with someone else. Maybe replace the puzzles with like additional side missions or something, honestly. As for Joker, I'm still concerned about him even being in the game. But the fact that he's a wild card and he's just like a side character now, it's kind of a relief. But I still think that not having him in the game at all is the best option right now, because he's been in every single game, whether as the main villain or as like a major piece to the story. So I think if they just didn't include Joker in just one game, you see how that went, I think it would work in their favor. As for the rest of this list, I'm glad that they are introducing more obscure and less well-known villains like Dala and Dusan Al Ghul. Really curious to see how those kind of villains will play out. And also, I think having the Court of Owls and Owlman as the main set of villains in this story is just absolutely brilliant, because it's something that we've never seen in a Batman game before. We've never had the Court of Owls be main villains. I don't even think we've gotten a mention of the court in any of the Arkham games. We might have it in an Easter egg, like I don't remember, I could be wrong, but for the most part there's just basically no mention of the court. So I'm glad that they're introducing these guys into the story. This was actually also another group of villains on the Damian Wayne concept as well. I think just the whole concept of just having Batman and Robin fight Talons, it just seems so much more badass than just going up against just regular street thugs, even if they are like armored and whatnot. So I'm really glad that they're doing this, and I'd just love to see how it all plays out with the whole like combat system and everything. Also, I'm really glad they're bringing back boss battles, because that's the one thing that really bothered me the most about Arkham Knight. Arkham Knight had boss battles, but they were just really shitty boss battles. Especially the Cobra tanks was just a pain in the ass. I don't even know why they included that in the game. The Red Hood one was a really big disappointment. It's not how I wanted it to be. So as for boss fights, I would like to see more boss fights like the one from Arkham Origins, Batman vs. Deathstroke. That's like one of my favorite boss fights of all time. So I'd like to see more of those kind of fights, along with more innovative fights. So like the Batman vs. Mr. Freeze from Arkham City. I want to see something like that. Yeah, just anything along those lines for boss battles. I think that would work really well. But that's all I'll have for you guys. Just let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. I'm personally really excited for this, but I'm not gonna get my hopes up too high because it could end up being false. The only way we'll know if it's true or not is on March 8th, which is, again, this is a rumor. It's not 100% confirmed, but it looks really legitimate. So on March 8th, we're supposed to be getting some kind of like announcement or trailer or some sort of new information on this game will be released on March 8th. So that's the only time we'll know if either of these concepts are true or not. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, remember to smack that like button, as always appreciated. If you have any comments or questions, leave them down below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Also, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button to see more content like this. I'll see you guys next time.